Hi math friends! If you are watching this video, it is because I have asked you to do test corrections on the test we took yesterday. As you follow along in this video, I want you to correct your test. So figure out what you did wrong on your test, and then after you have corrected all of the problems that you missed, I want you to do the additional practice problems that I gave you so that you will then be ready to retake this test. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start with problem 1. Okay, for this particular section on the test, it says to simplify each expression and show your work. So remember in algebra, if there is a number right next to a parenthesis, like we have here, that is implied multiplication. And because there is more than one term inside the parenthesis, we have to multiply both of the terms inside the parenthesis by what's out front. That's called using the distributive property. So we would do 4 times x, which is 4x, and then we would do 4 times a negative 3. Because there's a subtraction sign in front of this number, it actually makes it negative. So 4 times negative 3 would be negative 12. And then from there, neither one of these are like terms. So we have simplified this expression. For number 2, you have a negative 7 out front of your parenthesis, and then inside your parenthesis you have a 2y and you have a negative 6. So you need to distribute the negative 7 to both the 2y and the negative 6. Negative 7 times 2y is negative 14y. Negative 7 times a negative 6 is a positive 42. Don't forget that if there's a subtraction sign in front of a number, it makes it negative. For number 3, this one is a little bit different because the number that is next to our parenthesis is to the right side of it. But we do the same thing. We have to make sure we distribute that 3 to both terms inside the parenthesis. So 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times a negative 8x is a negative 24x. Okay, for this next section on your test, you are supposed to simplify each expression again. You need to combine like terms. And if you need to distribute, you do that first and then you combine like terms. Remember, when we combine like terms, we're always adding. If there's an addition sign in front of the term, it makes it positive. If there's a subtraction sign in front of the term, it makes it negative. Okay, so for this one, number 4, we have 8w and we have a negative 5w. Remember, like terms are terms that have the exact same variable raised to the exact same power. There is a subtraction sign in front of this term right here, so that means that this is a negative 5w. So now to do this, we would be combining a positive 8 with a negative 5. So in your calculator, you could put 8 plus negative 5, and that would give you a 3w. Remember, our variables stay exactly the same. So after we combine the coefficients, the variables stay the same. 8w plus a negative 5w is 3w. Okay? And then we also have a positive 7 and a positive 2, which is a positive 9. Okay? For question number 5, we have a number 5 that's in front of a parenthesis. So we need to distribute this first, and then after we distribute, we're going to combine any like terms that we have left. So 5 times a negative 3x is a negative 15x, and 5 times 4 is positive 20. And then in this expression, we still have an additional positive 20. Now from there, we can combine positive 20 and positive 20, and that would be a positive 40. Okay. For question number 6, there's nothing to distribute, so we're just going to combine like terms. We have a 5r. We also have a negative 7r. Both of these two terms have an r raised to the first power. So when we combine these, 5 plus negative 7 would be negative 2r. So now we've taken care of those. Now we have a positive 4g and a positive 1g, and that's going to be a positive 5g. and then we have plus 6. For this next section on your test, you were asked to solve each one-step equation. Remember, when you solve an equation, your whole goal is to isolate your variable. You want to get your variable all by itself. And you do that by using inverse operations or opposite operations to undo things that have been done to the variable. Okay, so when we look at number 7, we have a 1w plus 9 equals negative 9. If we want this to just be a 1w, we have to get rid of the plus 9. The way that we get rid of the plus 9 is by using the opposite of adding 9, which is subtracting 9. And whatever we do on one side of the equation, we have to do the exact same thing on the other side. So if we subtract 9 from the left side, we also have to subtract 9 from the right side. The plus 9 and the subtract 9 cancels out, and we're left with 1w, which is what we wanted to have happen, and then a negative 9 plus a negative 9 is a negative 18. Okay, that is the value of the variable that makes this equation true. So when you find a solution, you should always be able to plug it back in, and if it makes it true, then you know that you've done it correctly. Okay, on question number 8, this is negative 3 times by n. Whenever you have a variable right next to a number in algebra, that's implied multiplication. So this is negative 3 times by n equals negative 12. If we want to get rid of the multiplication of negative 3, we have to divide by a negative 3. And if we divide the left side by negative 3, we also have to divide the right side by negative 3. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1n, and then negative 12 divided by negative 3 is a positive 4. Okay, and we can see that if we multiply negative 3 times 4, it does give us negative 12. Okay, the next one, question number 9. On this one, we have 3/4 right next to the y. So that means that this is 3/4 times by y. In order to get rid of a multiplication, you're going to use division. So in order to get rid of the multiplication of 3/4, we're going to divide by 3/4, which means we have to do that on both sides. Okay, so 3/4 divided by 3/4 gives us a positive 1y. And then when we have 15 divided by 3/4, the way that you divide fractions is you flip the second one over and then you multiply. So 15 times 4 is 60. 1 times 3 is 3, and 60 divided by 3 is 20. So y equals 20. That is your solution. On question number 10, we're asked to again solve a one-step equation. So in order to do that, we need to isolate this variable f. We need to get the f by itself on number 10. So right now, this is f subtract 15. If we want the f to be all by itself, we have to get rid of the subtract 15 by doing an add 15. And whatever we do on one side, we've got to do the exact same thing on the other side. When you combine a negative 14 and a positive 15, you get 1. So f equals 1. That is our solution. And if we take negative 14, we plug 1 back in for the f, we can see that 1 is the value of the variable that makes the equation true. Okay, on number 11, this is y divided by 5 equals 15. So if we want to get rid of a division, we have to use multiplication. So we're going to times by 5 on the left side. We also have to times by 5 on the right side. This divided by 5 and times by 5 leaves us with a 1y equal to 15 times 5, which is 75. Okay? And if we plug 75 in for our variable, we can see that that really does make the equation true. Okay, so the last set of questions on your test are solving two-step equations. So that means that there are two things that you need to get rid of in order to get the x to be all by itself. Okay, so for this first one, you have 2 times x plus 5 equals negative 9. Remember, when we're solving equations, we're undoing the equation to be left with just the variable. We always follow the reverse order of operations. Okay, so we get rid of the one that doesn't have the variable first. We get rid of the addition or subtraction part first. So in order to get rid of a plus 5, we're going to do a subtract 5, which we do on both sides. So now we have 2 times x equals negative 9 plus a negative 5, which is a negative 14. And then from there, this is 2 times by x. So in order to get the x all by itself, we would have to divide by 2 on both sides. So x equals a negative 7. That is our solution. So if we take 2, we multiply it by negative 7, and we add 5, we do get negative 9. Okay? On question number 13, this one says 5 plus p divided by negative 2 equals 45. So remember, here's our p. We're going to get rid of the 5 first by doing a subtract 5. 5 minus 5, that's what cancels the 5 out. So then we would have to do a subtract 5 on the other side. So p divided by negative 2 equals 45 plus a negative 5, which is positive 40. And because this is p divided by negative 2, in order to get the p all by itself, we're going to have to get rid of that divided by negative 2 by timesing by negative 2 on both sides. So that ends up giving us 1p equals 40 times negative 2, which is negative 80. And again, if we take 5 and we add a negative 80 divided by negative 2, that does give us 45. Okay, 14. We have k divided by 9, subtract 3 equals negative 11. So in order to solve for the k, we would first get rid of the subtract 3 by adding 3 to both sides. So k divided by 9 equals negative 8. And then in order to get the k by itself, we have to get rid of the divided by 9. So we're going to multiply 9 on the left side, and we're going to multiply by 9 on the right side. So k equals negative 72. Now let's just check to make sure that that does make our equation true. And it does. Okay, the last two. For 15, we are solving this equation for the r. We have 4 is equal to 15 times by r, subtract 7. So if we want the r to be alone, we first get rid of the subtract 7 by adding 7 to both sides. Remember, whatever you do on one side, you've got to do the same thing on the other side. So that leaves us with 11, I'm going to put this down here, equal to 15 times by r. And in order to get rid of the multiplication of 15, we have to use division. So 11 divided by 15 equals r. Okay, the last one on this, number 16, on this section of solving two-step equations, we have 2/3 times by b plus 4 equals 6. Our first step is going to be to get rid of the plus 4 by doing a subtract 4 on both sides. So that's going to leave us with 2/3 times by b equals 6, subtract 4, which is 2. And then from there, we have to get rid of this multiplication of 2/3 by using division. We're going to divide both sides by 2/3. Okay? So 2/3 divided by 2/3, that's going to cancel to a 1b. And then right here, 2 divided by 2/3. When you divide fractions, you flip the second one over and then you multiply. And I'm so sorry, I'm running out of space here. So this would really become 3 over 2, because we're just going to flip the second one over and then we multiply. So 2 times 3 is 6, top times top. 1 times 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Okay, and for your last section of problems, you need to solve each inequality. Remember, I told you you didn't have to worry about doing the graph. Remember, solving inequalities is just like solving equations, except for there's one special rule. If you multiply or divide by a negative when you're solving, you have to flip your inequality symbol. So if solving inequalities is just like solving equations, in order to solve this inequality for the v, we're trying to figure out what we can plug in for v that's going to make this inequality statement true. We have to isolate the v. We have to get it all by itself, which means we have to get rid of the 4. So to get rid of the 4, we're going to subtract 4. 4 minus 4 is what cancels the 4 out to leave us with just a v. And then we have greater than. Because we subtracted 4 from the right side, we also have to subtract 4 from the left side. Negative 6 plus negative 4 is a negative 10. Okay, so v is greater than negative 10. That's your solution. And you don't have to do the graphing part, but if this is 0 and this is negative 10, that means that v can be any of the numbers that are bigger than negative 10. Okay, and on the last one, we have negative 8 times by f is greater than or equal to negative 80. So in order to get this f all by itself, we have to get rid of the multiplication of negative 8. So we're going to divide by negative 8 on both sides. Because we divided by a negative, our inequality symbol has to flip, and negative 80 divided by negative 8 is positive 10. Okay, so what that means as far as a solution goes is that if this is 0 and this is 10, you can pick any numbers that are less than or equal to 10. Okay? So, you guys, from here, what I want you to do is do the extra practice problems that I attached to your test, and then you can redo your test by either coming in before school or after school, or I can request you in den time. So, thanks, you guys.